It's been said that people get nervous to speak up here. Some get scared to speak in public, or anywhere that they can be judged. There's about 5.3 million people in the world today who suffer from a social phobia. That's the third most prevalent mental disorder, right behind depression and alcoholism. Social phobia doesn't just include speaking in public, though. It includes anything that has to do with a social situation, from going to a store at a checkout, or, or even just eating in public. Imagine yourself when you come up here. Your thoughts begin to race, your muscles tense up, your mouth dries, and your heart beats loud. Possibly loud enough for everybody to hear. But what is it that causes us to act that way? It's not like we're in a threatening situation. It's not like somebody has a gun to our head. It's not like somebody's waiting for us. But the fear of public speaking is more prevalent than the fear of death. Why? Why do we fear things even though there's no real evident threat? If you ever go to a career in science, such as psychology or biology, there's a frustrating rule that says you can't prove anything. In fact, prove is a forbidden word. Therefore, you'll only see theories. And theories explain certain phenomena or help make future predictions. Any experiments done help to destroy or support that theory. And since there's no proven theory, there's multiple explanations for why we act the way we do. But I'd like to talk about two theories that explain why we act the way we do, and treatments for each of those theories. The first theory is that people may create two assumptions that cause them to allow fear in a certain situation. The first is that they think that they will behave in an inept and unacceptable fashion, leading to the second, which is that behavior will have disastrous consequences, such as status loss, loss of worth, or even rejection. Whenever you enter a situation that you feel like you can be judged, the cycle kicks in. Those assumptions start to begin in your head. You begin to feel like you're in a social battleground. Are they watching me? Am I dressed okay? Can they see how bad my hands are shaking? You might begin to feel nervous, out of control, or possibly humiliated. The problem is that these feelings that you create are feelings that you create of yourself. But you begin to feel that everybody has those feelings. Everybody's trying to judge you. You try to see yourself from their point of view, but you exaggerate every physical sign. Even though you feel your body possibly twitching, they think your whole body's shaking. You feel like you might stutter a couple of words, but they think your words are all slurring together. You see this happening when in fact you're probably not showing much anxiety at all. All this builds up to is a constant fear that you will humiliate yourself in public, impairing your ability to enter any social situation as simple as eating in public. Cognitive behavior therapists believe that being involved in more positive social situations will give a patient a better view of their self. Basically, practice. Practice speaking with people, practice speaking in public, practice speaking in any sort of social situation. The therapist will probably create the situation that produces very little anxiety, such as possibly speaking to only one person. They'll build on that situation as the patient begins to feel more comfortable. Their self-esteem will rise, and they will become more confident of themselves. The therapist may also have them evaluate the reality of the judgments. Are the people in the audience the ones who are actually judging them? Or are they creating that sort of judgmental atmosphere in their own head? Once the patient realizes that he or she is creating their own reality of judgments, it's believed that they'll be able to control their emotions and not feel that those emotions are coming from other people. The behavior cognitive theory says that people are placing their own self-judgment on the audience, believing that the audience is evaluating their every move. However, if the social phobia has no feelings of being judged, yet still afraid of a social situation, it could be a biological cause rather than a cognitive cause. That is, a physical cause rather than a thought process going on in your head. The biological theory says that there's something going on in the brain that causes a person to create an inappropriate fear, like a social situation. Through many experiments, psychologists have noticed that the fearful situations ignited a part of the brain called the amygdala. The amygdala has been discovered to be important in emotions and in memory, and especially in emotional memories. Through those experiments, it was noticed that there are two pathways that lead to the amygdala, a slow one and a fast one. The fast one travels to the amygdala anytime there's a threatening situation. So picture yourself strolling down the road, you hear rustling in the bushes. The amygdala instantly initiates a reaction to that rustling. Your pupils dilate, your heart rate increases, and blood is rushed to your quick reflex muscles in order to avoid any kind of threat. I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight. Something jumps out of the bushes and you jerk backwards. Then the second signal reaches the amygdala. That signal has gone through a reality thought process. It has analyzed the situation, everything to do with the situation, to decide if the threat is real or just a false alarm. Once you realize that that innocent kitten was just looking for a friend, you begin to calm down. Your heart rate slows and your anxiety just vanishes. That would be a normal response, but what if that second pathway never reaches the amygdala? A malfunction in the second pathway would leave you in a constant state of fear to a certain stimulus, like a kitten in a specific phobia, or speaking in public in a social phobia, like this, for example. But you would have no real explanation as to why you are afraid. Why the second pathway never reaches the amygdala is not completely understood, but there are medications prescribed to help alleviate the anxiety symptoms. There are four main types of medications used to help with phobias among their other uses. The first helps regulate the level of serotonin, which is responsible for mood and anxiety, such as Zoloft and Prozac. The second lowers the effects of epinephrine, or adrenaline. There are mild sedatives, such as Valium and Xanax. And lastly, there's a drug that prevents the breakdown of neurotransmitters, which are the communication chemicals within the brain. When they break down, the communication within the brain is not as efficient. There's no certain answer as to why phobias exist or how to treat them. With the experiments performed, psychologists have discovered the longevity of the treatment, that is, how long until the patient returns to the phobic state, is better with cognitive behavior therapy than with drugs. However, the best treatment is with both.